Greetings and welcome again to Healing for the Family. This is a podcast we hope will redeem the place of the family as the basic unit of society. In the last episode, we had a very good conversation about the place of therapy in helping a family navigate through some difficult family experiences. And we were joined by my friend, Pastor Marion, who is the founder and director of Farm Hope. Is that the right title?
Yeah.
I feel like I've been just baptizing titles on you.
No, that one is
That is founder and director of Farm Hope, a family marriage and family therapy consultancy right here on Eastern Bypass. Karibu sana, Pastor Marion.
Thank you so
and
much.
Thank you for joining us again. We had a long conversation in the last episode, and we were talking about therapy, and we spoke about why families should go for therapy. You helped us understand quite a bit the work that you do. And what I really liked was when we were talking about theology and psychology, and how those two things are not in conflict. I want us to, in this episode, just go a little bit deeper into the issues that families deal with.
Yeah.
And I recently came across a term, intergenerational family trauma. Is that a term you're familiar with?
Yes.
Intergenerational family trauma. What is that?
Intergenerational family trauma is trauma or painful experiences that have been passed from one generation to another.
Yeah.
It has the word intergenerational, which is generation one. On a genogram, we talked about a genogram.
We talked about a genogram,
in the first episode, which is a family tree.
Yes.
That is drawn in a specific way by the family therapist. Is supposed to have 3 generations.
Yes.
So it's supposed to have, if it's my family, it's supposed to have my grandparents, then my parents, and then mine.
Yes.
So those are already 3 generations. So we can see intergenerational aspects that have been passed from one generation to another.
Yeah.
We can, on a genogram, we can see some of those relationships.
Yeah.
We can also see abuse on that.
Patterns of abuse.
We can see that intergenerational.
Yeah.
Because abuse is what brings about trauma.
Yeah.
I wanted to define the word trauma.
Please do.
Trauma is any experience that you or a person closest to you experiences that is near death or a threat to their lives or their dignity.
Near death, a threat to life, or a threat to dignity.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
For example, if in relationships today, there's so much abuse.
Yes.
Even people who are not married to each other.
Yeah.
And I've had stories where somebody has been abused and thrown out naked. Now, the beating is already traumatic, but the being thrown out naked is very traumatic.
It's just another level of trauma.
Now, imagine if it is your brother that was thrown, or your sister that was thrown out naked. It's also traumatic to you, because now you imagine what they may have gone through.
Yeah.
So trauma can be what you have experienced as a person, or what another person who is you're in significant relationship with has experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, that's very interesting, because when we think of trauma, you said near death.
Yes.
A near death experience.
Yeah.
Or a threat to life, or a threat to dignity.
Yes.
The near-death experience one is, something, please excuse my simplicity, being simplistic here, something big needs to have happened. Like, something big that threatens your life, like an accident, or something that causes PTSD. Threat to life.
Yes.
Your life has to be under threat. And that is, it's something tangible. There's something tangible that you can see that this is a threat to my life. It is the dignity one that is the small things
Yes.
or things that we may look at as small, but we don't really recognize or realize that these are actually traumatic experiences.
That's why bullying is traumatic.
That's why bullying is traumatic.
Yes.
And bullying does happen in family. We think of bullying, and when you talk about bullying, it's just schools that people think about, boys' schools and what have you, and girls' schools as well.
Yes.
Bullying experiences there. But bullying does happen in the family as well.
A lot. And sometimes it takes a form of shaming. And sometimes families use shaming as a way to punish a person who has not conformed to a family tradition, or a family value, or a family culture. So we shame someone and we sit them down and tell them, our family doesn't know people who don't get A's. What are you doing without an A? Why would you date someone from this community? How? And we give names, name calling. And that now is another form of abuse, because abuse is vast. Abuse is huge. We have physical abuse, we have psychological abuse, we have sexual abuse, we have economic abuse, we have cyber abuse, and we have verbal abuse.
Wow. What are in verbal abuse? Because in my thinking, verbal abuse could be what is said.
Yes.
Well, even what I'm thinking is not right, because I'm thinking it's what is said or what is not said. But it has to be said. It has to be verbalized.
When it's not said, it becomes psychological.
It becomes psychological.
Yes.
You are hoping to have a conversation with your father, or you're hoping to have a conversation with your mom, or a conversation with your siblings, but they just never talk to you. You just never have a conversation. This family never talks, and then that cycle is repeated, isn't it? And that in some way we create patterns.
You create patterns
are intergenerational.
And you see, the human mind is not good at creating space. So we fill up or we give meaning to the not being talked to, or not having meaningful conversation. So we imagine that we are not loved. So rejection comes in. We imagine that we are not good enough. So acceptance. We talk about conditional acceptance rather than unconditional acceptance, which we should experience in a healthy family. So we find ourselves lonely. Loneliness is not bad, because it's part of life. We should be comfortable with some spaces of loneliness. But now loneliness because of people not really wanting to engage with you or have a relationship with you is, we explain and say, we are not liked, we are not good enough, we don't belong. In life we've all felt one time or another that we don't belong. Are these my real parents? Why are they treating me the way they're treating me? So we fill up space. We fill up space quickly.
So this meme, there was a meme a little while ago of, I don't know what that thing is called, but it looks like a frog, just sitting and thinking about weird stuff. And at this one particular point, he was thinking, ama sikuangi wetu na sijui.
we kind of have
you
that.
You get there and like, sikuangi wetu na sijui, sijaambiwa, so the trauma that we live with and that we live our family experiences and lead our families with is not necessarily something that started with you.
No, ideally not.
Not always.
Ideally it's not, but sometimes it can. There are different types of trauma. We have chronic trauma, we have acute trauma. Acute trauma is a traumatic experience you experience once. Chronic trauma is where you live in a traumatic situation. For example, you work in the military, you work, in places where, or first responders. We talk about first responders. First responders could be the policeman, the doctors,
nurses,
what do you call them? Those who drive the ambulances, the paramedics, the firefighter, all those are first responder. The social worker, basically. I actually include the pastor in that list, because when someone kills themselves, the pastor is called to witness as they are brought down. There is that is what is chronic, because you live in it. But also chronic trauma can be facilitated because you live in a marriage where there is domestic violence, or you watch your parents perpetrating domestic violence on each other. That's chronic. But we have what we call developmental trauma. Developmental trauma is trauma that is encountered from your childhood. And it is very unfortunate that when we experience trauma in childhood, it affects our brain development. How? The brain has several parts of the brain that we know. And they are all important because they help to navigate and support our bodies, our thinking, our decision making, our movement. We know for sure the frontal lobe because it provides the executive functioning. But we have the limbic system, which is in the middle, the midbrain, that is the center of memory and emotions. Unfortunately, the frontal lobe, the executive function, cannot do without the limbic system. Because the limbic system is the one that when it is settled, it gives permission to information to be processed at the frontal lobe. But trauma does not allow information to be processed on the frontal lobe because it exaggerates the situation, and we live in the fight and flight mode. We don't settle to think and solve problems. So when the brain is developing and a child is exposed to trauma, the limbic system, the amygdala specifically, becomes bigger than the frontal lobe. So it occupies more space, and therefore that child is not able to function optimally to be a bright child.
I feel like I should have brought my notebook.
So you wonder, why can't this child function? Because they come from a family where they were sexually abused, they were molested, they were neglected. That's why that child can't function well. Because the amygdala became bigger, and we talk about abuse hijacking the amygdala, and therefore preventing the information to be processed on the front in the frontal lobe, and therefore executive functioning of gaining knowledge and being able to solve problems. So you find out that someone who's experiencing traumatic problems cannot be able to be in good relationships. They are not able to solve problems. They will think about suicide. Leave that alone. They also develop mental illnesses, depression, bipolar, and anxiety disorders. And therefore, it is important to note and understand that the greatest environment for trauma in childhood is a family. And we have to have our ears open, our eyes open, and to change our attitude towards what trauma is. Because if shaming is trauma, I was bullied by my own siblings just because of how my teeth were set, and it affected my self-esteem. Because it is in the family that we get the knowledge of three things. One, self-knowledge. Who am I? And that's where the self-esteem is developed. Two, who are others? Can I trust people? Who cares? Who doesn't care? And thirdly, is this world fair? So we get the knowledge about ourselves as family members reflect on who we are. And when my family, my siblings reflected on my teeth, they told me I look like a warthog. And for the longest time in my life, I would look at myself and I would not see anyone beautiful in the mirror. Because I looked at myself and I said, in the eyes of my siblings, this is how I look. For the longest time, I told myself that. So when we support children, when we support an adolescent through creating and building a good self-esteem,
Yeah.
then we are creating a human being.
Yeah.
We are creating another family in the future
Yeah.
that will be stable because this person sees themselves right.
Yeah.
They trust that others are good
Yeah.
before they judge them as evil.
Yeah.
And therefore they can be trusted
Yeah.
because their needs were met in childhood and they were supported by those others,
Yeah.
and that the world was safe to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just listening to you, Pastor Marion, and I am asking myself, and please allow me to use your example, the one
Yes.
you've given about your siblings. Would it have mattered if your siblings told you you're beautiful? They affirmed you and never said anything, about your teeth, that in their eyes you're the most beautiful person, and they said it. Would it have mattered if people who are not members of your family said instead what your families, your siblings were saying to you?
Oh yeah, it would have.
It would have.
It would have been such a strong resounding. In fact, I would walk past them and tell them, you don't know.
You don't know.
Oh, you don't know. My family, my
thinks I'm
dad,
the best, yeah.
because they're the first people that
Yeah.
actually introduce you to the world.
Yeah.
And they're the first people that give you self-reference. As children grow,
Yeah.
in different stages of life, we
Yeah.
talk about self-referencing. At what point does a child know this dot here is not part of me?
Yeah.
Like if you put a dot on a child,
Yeah.
at around 8 months a year, that child is able to have some sense of self-reference.
Yeah.
And they can be able to look at the mirror and smile, and do stuff on the mirror and be able to know there is the mirror and there is me. And that person on the mirror is looking maybe like me.
Yeah.
So if that's what the family is, it's a mirror to me.
Yeah.
It tells me this is who you are. Now, if the family mirrors me and tells me of how beautiful I am, then that is what I will carry
Yeah.
with myself.
Yeah.
And when the world comes and tells me, oh, by the way, you don't look so good, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that is how come families where children have had different challenges, even developmental challenges, have made it in society because the family has believed in them and not allowed them to think about their inability, but has supported them to have some believe in themselves. And that's it is a very important factor.
Yeah.
However, we need to watch out as families not to lie.
Yeah.
Because that's the other balance.
Yeah.
I'm sure my family would have told me, Marion, you're so pretty. If those days we didn't have a lot of awareness with what you could do to change your teeth here and there. They say, oh, maybe we can try this and see if your teeth gets better shape, or be able to tell me, you know what, you're beautiful even with your teeth the way they are.
So families have the responsibility to affirm who we are, but that responsibility is accompanied by another responsibility to be truthful.
Yes.
In affirming us, not to tell us like, because if you told me my teeth are if my teeth were brown, right? Because I grew up with brown teeth. And my family told me, no, your teeth are not brown. Your teeth, just
they're okay.
they're okay. And then I go
somewhere
and they tell me how brown and ugly my teeth are. I will. What is happening there is I'm beginning to lose trust in my family because they're not telling me the truth about who I am, about what I look like, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's a responsibility to tell the truth.
There is.
How do we recognize patterns of trauma? How do we recognize that this is a traumatic thing, but it's a pattern in our family? How do we go about recognizing?
I think we need to understand what is traumatic in families, because then when we understand what is traumatic in families, we look out for these traumatic experiences through the generations, and then we will know it's a pattern. One is what we've talked about, abuse. And especially allow me to talk about sexual abuse. Sexual abuse has been one of the oldest forms of abuse that have been perpetrated in the family.
Yeah.
And sexual abuse in childhood is actually any form of abuse in childhood is carried out by someone who's known to the family.
To the family, yeah.
It's never by a stranger.
Yeah.
It is someone who's known to the family and someone who the family kind of has some trust.
Yeah.
And this child feels they are safe with them. Sexual abuse has been perpetrated over the years. It ranges from sexual assault, of touching a child's private parts. And these days with abuse, we say it is actually perpetrated. The victims of abuse in the family include even boys. It's not just girls.
Not just girls anymore.
And it ranges from sexual assault to being shown pornographic material or to being shown an adult's body for self-stimulation, or a child is stripped and, stimulated sexually for an adult sexual interest. Children made to kiss each other for an adult to be stimulated. Like, it's a whole range of events that gets to the very end with penetrational sex or towards a child. And one of the greatest painful experiences for me as a therapist is the secrecy.
Yeah.
The secrecy around families that perpetrate abuse. Because through my experience as a pastor and as a therapist, I've had painful stories about brothers abusing their sisters, about fathers abusing their girls and insisting on having sexual intimacy with them so that they can be taken to school. I think for me that is very painful, knowing that education is a right of a child from a parent. Or a family where there is a step, blended families where an older child is a girl and the mother has been married with a girl and now they are being abused by the stepfather and because the mother is in love, she can't listen to them. Or the step parent came with an older child and now the older child who's a boy and this other girl now is being abused. An uncle, a grandparent, a worker, cousins that we bring to our homes, house girls. All these are, the community around us that can perpetrate abuse, especially sexual abuse. And sexual abuse is one of the most painful because a child does not understand what is going on. We steal and rob their innocence of sex, and we steal away the value of giving themselves away because that's what healthy sexuality is about, being able to give self away for to somebody that you value and that you are in a good relationship with. So emotional abuse, domestic abuse that is common, and sometimes our culture perpetrates that. Early child marriage, female genital mutilation is traumatic, and cultures in this country need to know that. Neglect, rejection, favoritism, emotional cutoff. Emotional cutoff is when we as a family decide, my parents have a conflict with their brother, and they decide we will not be talking to them.
Yes.
And we will not go for their functions, we will not go for their burials, we will not go for their weddings.
Oh,
So that is a common emotional cutoff that has been perpetrated because now this conflict is between brothers. Now they are cousins.
There are a lot of cousins. I was going to say in Africa, but I think this is a global phenomenon. There are a lot of cousins that I know that don't speak to each other because of conflicts they know nothing about. They never created. They just and then you try and find out. So why don't you speak to so and so's family, your dad's brother's family? And they're like, no, those guys are ni wachawi.
Because again, the mind doesn't like emptiness.
So
it has to fill it with information.
Hawa watu ni wachawi, hawa watu ni wezi. You asked, umewaona wakiba?
You're not sure.
Apana, lakini tuliambiwa. you see.
Yeah.
You know, that's a phenomena that is very common, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So emotional cutoff, you know, people think that if I don't talk to someone who has hurt me,
Yeah.
I will heal.
Yes.
You will not heal. Because you will remember. In fact, when you see them, it will come alive.
Yeah.
As if it had happened that morning.
So are you saying that silent treatment is not a conflict resolution mechanism?
It is not. Even emotional cutoff. Even emotional cutoff, where you bang the door and walk away.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you unfriend me and block me.
Yeah.
That doesn't heal.
Wow.
It does not heal.
It just makes it, because the thing sits there with you.
It leaves it there.
It lives.
And it can even compound it.
Even compound it.
Yeah, because the moment you think or remember that person,
yeah,
you are going to get back to the painful experience. You will relive the traumatic event.
Yeah.
It will come back alive. So when we know these things are aspects, these are very few things I've said. Loss and grief is traumatic. And especially when people lose a loved one when they are young, below the age of 12. Anything below the age of 12, you know, when a family loses a loved one or several loved ones and this individual is not involved, we are traumatizing them. We are traumatizing them. Talk about abuse, substance abuse in the family, use of alcohol and substance, extreme use of alcohol and substance is a traumatic event. Loss of a family member through suicide is a traumatic event. That's a story in my family. Chronic illness. When people are going through a serious chronic illness, they watch a family member move from one level to another. It's very painful. We've talked about accidents and terrorism and all these things that we have seen can be very traumatic in the life of an individual. So when families experience several of these things, it is important for us to know that these are things that can traumatize us if they are not processed well. And therefore, the family needs to take initiative when such things happen to quickly process them.
To quickly process. Now, I want to talk about processing.
Okay.
But I also want to talk about the role we play, and especially if we are leaders of families, those who are leaders of families, and in this case I'm talking about
the elder siblings.
The elder siblings are leaders of families. We ought to know that the choices we make now could potentially affect the way children 3 generations from us will live their lives. So we are not just living our lives for ourselves. We are living a life that will impact generations to come, isn't it?
True.
And I'm actually thinking about the story of Abraham in the Bible. Abraham and Sarah. Sarah makes the decision to give her maiden Hagar to Abraham to sire a child with. But Sarah is also waiting to have a child. And eventually, in the meantime, here is a solution. Here is a stopgap measure. But eventually, Sarah gets a child. And because now Sarah has a child, they can't live together with her maiden.
They're actually 2 wives.
They are now 2 wives. They are now 2 wives because they are, they both have a child with Abraham, and Ishmael, who was not there when these choices were being made, when these decisions were being made by these 3 adults, has to live the consequence of that choice. And generations of Ishmael now, we read throughout history
of sibling rivalry over generations
because of those choices. So we are not just living our lives for ourselves. The choices we make now impact even generations.
True.
Wow.
And a traumatic event that has come, when you are talking about that, is divorce and separation and infidelity.
Yes.
I may choose to be unfaithful to my spouse because we have personal,
Yeah.
we have couple issues.
Yeah.
But do you know that decision
Yeah.
will affect my children?
Will affect your children. And maybe
Whether it
even the
is
children of
open-
your children, whether it's
Whether
open
it is
or not.
open or a secret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a friend who says, first, he loves his wife.
Yeah.
He does. But he has made a commitment to his wife. No matter what happens, they're not going to divorce. They will do their best not to divorce.
Yes.
Because they're not living their lives for themselves. If they choose to go that direction, and there are a lot of traumatic things that happen in marriage that bring people to a place where they can't live with each other anymore.
Yeah.
But he says, I can't imagine thinking that my children, because of this decision, will change the way they introduce themselves forever. I have come from a broken family.
Yes.
Or my mom and my father and mother
mom
divorced.
separated.
Yeah,
Yes.
they separated when I was 12.
Yes.
Or
I am a child of a single parent.
I'm a child of a single parent.
My family is blended.
I live in a blended family. There is a lot, how just changes.
I have step siblings.
I have step siblings.
Oh, we are 10.
Yeah.
But 3 of us are from one.
But 3 of us are from our other mother.
Yeah.
It changes how children introduce themselves, whether we admit it.
And that's identity.
And that's
what we were just
identity.
talking about. That
It's
family
an
gives us an
identity issue.
identity.
Wow.
Yeah. So thinking about that is remembering that, as you're saying, every decision I make
Yeah.
impacts on my children.
Yeah.
But as a Christian, I even have a greater responsibility, especially in marriage,
Yeah.
to know that I am also supposed to be reflecting
Yeah.
Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, marriage from this perspective is so that the world will know this is how Christ loved the church. This is how the church responds to Christ.
Yeah.
And therefore, the picture you and I depict in our marriages is not only to show whether we are happy or not,
Yeah.
or, for showbiz.
Yeah. It's not for the gram.
No, it's a reflection
Of
to the
Christ.
world
Yeah.
that this is how Christ loved the church.
Yeah.
But as you're saying, the responsibility of ensuring that abuse does not happen,
Yeah.
preventative,
Yeah.
and to ensure that abuse doesn't happen,
Yeah.
but also to intervene when abuse happens, lies totally on the adults in the family. The adults in the family, the father, the mother, and any other adult in that family needs to be called towards a sense of responsibility. And when people have failed to fulfill that responsibility and abuse has happened, the next thing that the family needs to do is to report, Pastor Olunga, is to report. We cannot be hiding abuse.
Yeah.
Because when we hide abuse, we actually perpetrate it silently.
We become perpetrators of the abuse.
We support
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Whether it's my brother who did it,
Yeah.
I am breaking my child
Yeah.
if I don't
Yeah.
support my child.
Yeah.
I will love my brother, but I will hate whatever they did. I will love my, friend, but I will not condone what they did. Because when you do that, you lose the child. You lose the child to mental health problems. You lose the child to be victims of abuse, become perpetrators of abuse in adulthood.
Exactly.
And that may be a wife who will psychologically abuse their husband and threaten them. Or, wives that put a knife under the bed
Yeah.
and sleep without anything and said, try and touch me.
Yeah.
That's abuse.
Yeah.
And some of this, you can trace it back.
Yeah.
You can trace it back from a victim of abuse
Yeah.
that was never addressed.
Yeah. You've spoken about a knife. As a pastor, I've counseled with men who've come to me and said, my wife held a knife to me, right? And I've gone to speak with the wife, and the wife said, yes, I held a knife, but I wasn't intending. There was no intention.
That's still abuse.
I wasn't going to do
Psychological
anything.
Yes.
As And you can understandably see wives need to protect themselves against an abusive husband, abusive spouse. But I have seen marriages that are completely broken because someone held a weapon, whether
or
they
mistakenly used it. Because now, on my other side, you meet people in remand or in prison who tell you it was all a mistake.
It was all
I
a
should
mistake.
not have had that knife in my bedroom.
Yeah. So
it was not intended to be used.
It was not intended.
But the crime of passion does not know logic.
Exactly.
Again, the amygdala hijacked the frontal lobe. And what the pain they were feeling moved to action.
Wow. The thing I'm thinking about, Pastor Marion, as we talk about patterns of trauma, is we think of abuse, and again, I'm sounding simplistic here. Okay. We think of abuse in terms of the big things. Someone was raped. Domestic violence, something went. Domestic violence, I don't even need to say something went overboard. Domestic violence is abuse. It's wrong. Accidents, grief, or, again, the big things that happen. But there are small things that we don't even consider as abuse. There's just the way, this is just the way we talk in this family. We make fun of each other. And we have accepted that. We have accepted that that's just how things are in this family. Or we don't talk to each other. We don't go out of our way to support each other. Those small things, you know what I mean? Like even silent. When you have conflict with a sibling, it's okay to go quiet. That's how we deal. That's how we deal with conflict in this family. Does that constitute abuse? Is there a potential for those patterns to be repeated in families?
I think they are. Their impact may be different on different people in terms of personality, in terms of knowledge and understanding, and their personal walk or personal journey to mental well-being. Some families don't willingly perpetrate silence or those family traditions. It's probably a lack of awareness. And that's why, for me, the first place is to be aware of how a healthy family looks like. And probably I want to talk about that. How a healthy family looks like. Because a healthy family has both a clear understanding of the individual needs that they are supported to meet, but also a clear needs of the family as a unit that they are allowed to be part of. And sometimes families need to decide, what do we do when the individual needs conflict with the family unit needs. And sometimes it's when I love someone who's not in my community, and in my family that's not allowed. Or in my community that's not allowed. So what is it that we do when that happens? What is it that we do when my family is a family of doctors and teachers, but I want to be a DJ? Will I be supported or will I be bullied? So when we are being introduced in a family meeting, says, Olunga does nothing, Like, he's everywhere calling himself an artist. I say, but meet the professor, meet the architect, meet the, the
Even
lawyer.
His hair can tell you what he does.
So you see, that can make that person feel, I don't need to be in those family meetings. Every time I'm there, I'm bullied. I'm undermined. I'm not seen as a human being. So why am I there in the first place? And therefore they begin to now perpetrate the patterns of family relationships. We talk about two extreme patterns of family relation. What we call the disengaged, which is what you're talking about. People don't talk to each other. They have their own lives. They are very rigid in that aspect. But we also have on the other extreme an enmeshed family.
Mm-hmm.
This is a family that does everything together. Like, if you don't agree, if your life doesn't agree with the family, then you don't belong.
Mm.
Those two are dysfunctional.
Mm. Mm.
The enmeshed and the disengaged.
Mm.
The enmeshed, for you to belong in the enmeshed, you need to lose yourself.
Mm.
And for you to be an individual, you need to disconnect.
Yeah.
But that's not how healthy families function.
Yeah.
Healthy families must have a healthy we-ness
Yeah.
in the middle.
Mm.
That I know who I am, I know what I need, I know, where I'm going. But I also know my family, and I'm still willing to belong. Even when things are so tough, I'm still willing to belong.
Yeah.
So the family is willing to come close to meeting the need of the individual, and the individual is willing to come close to meet the needs of the family, and therefore we can have a balance. And most of the time, families are oscillating between the two points. So what is it that we can do as family members who have power to avoid these things? One is watch our narrative.
Yeah.
What stories are we giving our children? Are we giving children of, we were told your uncle is a witch? Those narratives that we do not have evidence, we don't have facts about, need to be deleted.
Yeah.
Number two is we need to deal with our emotional cutoffs. Let's rebuild relationships because family is family. Of course, with time, family loses its connectivity based on what people are going through. But let it not totally be cut off. Then we have parenting. Our parenting styles and parenting engagements need to consider each other. Can we send each other to each other's families? Can we agree on parenting rules that if I send my kids to your house this time, please let my kids live by my rules. Yeah. Even if you have different aspects. Rules, for example, so that I feel safe to have those kids there. And hopefully the values that you live by are not values I'm afraid of that will result into trauma to my child when I send them to you. Yeah. So that we are engaging in that. But also as we get married, can we talk? Because our parenting styles are informed by where we come from. We beat people with whatever we have. It's a shoe, is whatever we throw at it, at the child for whatever they're doing. Can we sit down and agree? This is how we are going to bring up our families. Yeah. Let's not tolerate abuse at all. Whatever form it takes. Taboos, family traditions. Let's look at them. Yeah. Let's resolve the unresolved issues. Yeah. It's not too late. Yeah. To call your siblings and say, let's talk about the grief of so-and-so. Yeah. Let's talk about how we processed it. So that should our children experience a grief, we go back. I remember working with a family and I asked them, you lost your parents, you lost a few of your siblings, you've lost your grandparents, you've lost property, you've been traumatized through post-violence experiences and lost a lot of property. What is it that you would tell the world about grief? And I think several of them said, you know what? I would first, even before my property is distributed or my clothes are given out or anything I own is given out, I would want to write to my lawyer and say, can these people have therapy? Yeah. Because the most important thing is how they move forward, not how they share what I have. And then they waste it because they are still grieving. No. I want, and this person said, I would even pay for those sessions so that they don't need to think about it. Yeah. I put some money aside and say, part of these resources first need to ensure they do about 10 sessions of therapy. And then I'll be good.
Speaking of which, and this is a question I think I should have asked you in our last episode. It just come to me. The other reason I think people shy away from therapy is the expense.
The cost.
The cost. Is therapy expensive?
Yes, it is.
It is.
Therapy is expensive. Therapy is treatment that is one stop. It's treatment that is crushed into 1 hour.
Mm.
Because in therapy, we do assessment.
Yeah.
And I want to compare this with the hospital.
Yeah.
When you go to the hospital, you go straight to the triage.
Yeah.
And you're taking your temperatures, your vitals are, are tracked.
Yeah.
Your heart rate, your temperature, and all that.
Mm.
In therapy, as you walk in, I'm already having a triage with you.
Mm.
I can see how you're dressed.
Mm.
I can see your mood. I can see you didn't comb your hair. I can see you chose to wear black throughout. And it is a question for me to ask, wow, today,
Yeah.
or you decided to wear white or red throughout, Then you sit, from my office, the choice of seat you sit, the farthest away from me or the closest away from me, it tells me something. And then I give you some screening, some assessment based on, or you have already filled the intake form, telling me what are the issues. That is like the doctor sending you and telling you, okay, based on what you have said you're going through, I'm sending you to the lab. So I will not send you to the lab. I will send you to Beck's screening. I will a personality assessment. I will check, mental wellness, marital satisfaction, couple adjustment. I'll send you, sexual, I'll send you to different screens for you to do different screening to be able to do that. And then I will give you medication right there. So when you calculate how much that costs, we put it together in a cost. But in the hospital, you'll be told the consultation fee separately, then the tests separately, that sometimes are extremely expensive, and then the medication, then you'll be put together. And it is all given to you. We do that in one sitting. You know what? When we used to have the laugh industry before COVID, it was okay for us to spend 2,000, 3,000 shillings to have a spot. And laughing is healthy. And laughing is healthy. But when I tell my clients to pay 3,000 shillings, 5,000 shillings for a couple session to save your marriage, it becomes very expensive.
And that's what I'm thinking about. While paying 5,000 shillings for a session or 3,000 shillings or whatever for a session might be expensive, I think the price that you pay for not paying, not wanting to pay that, is more dire.
Exactly.
Because many people are one therapy session away from divorce.
True.
Many people are one therapy session. It would only just take one therapy
away
session.
From infidelity.
Yeah, away from infidelity, away from infidelity, or turning into a tyrant and leading their family with violence. So the price of not doing it, I think it's higher than would be higher than doing it. In that sense, what is because you are talking about how we as families can get together and take preventive measures, break patterns. As an individual who belongs to a family, what is my responsibility to break patterns of trauma and abuse in my own family as an individual? What are some of the steps I can take?
First step is awareness. Awareness of what are healthy family patterns and what are not healthy family patterns. Healthy family patterns, from what we have just discussed with the stance families take, the extreme stance family takes, is a place of being in the middle and having some level of balance. That family unity is important, but not at the cost of an individual's needs. We have what we call family life cycles. Family life cycles are developmental stages of a family based on a family member. It starts with singles without a family. That's the first stage. Then goes to the coupling stage, where a couple is married but they have no children. Then the third, the first stage is not very complicated because it's you. The second stage becomes a bit complicated because now you need to introduce someone,
Yeah.
successfully transition them from being a girlfriend or a boyfriend to a spouse,
Yeah.
allowing the families to know each other and engage with each other, for both of you to adjust your lives together and to be with each other, and your families to be with each other. And then the child comes, and therefore preparing for the child, and now reintroducing the child to the rest of the families and all that.
Yeah.
And these transitions are difficult.
Yeah.
We need to be ready for them.
Yeah.
A family that's not ready for a pregnancy and for a child to come is already a setup of trauma.
Yeah.
Because even that child begins to feel rejected from the stomach.
Yeah.
So being able to be united as a family, to learn the needs of each family member and to support them as they come, to support family to grow, to support everyone to grow emotionally, physically, socially, academically, economically. Positive relationships, that we must put effort to have positive relationships, to have relationships not only where we are calling out problems, saying, hey, how are you? Hey, naleo hii shati umevaa. We are always seeing something wrong with someone every time we meet.
Yeah.
But also families that build resilience, families that prepare people to know that there will be problems, but we can solve problems better. Families that have problem-solving skills that are not avoidant or extreme. There are people who learned how to deal with problems dramatically. They shouted, they threw things, they bit someone.
Yeah.
So can we unlearn those negative things and learn positive things? And that's where in couple assessment we ask, tell us, how did your parents fight when they fought?
Yeah.
How did you know there was a conflict? How did they resolve the conflict? Was it the silent treatment? Someone went away for 3 days and when they came back, life went back to normal. No one said anything. Emotional regulation, that's another thing. Can you hold yourself?
Yeah.
When emotions are high? We are not saying that you hide each other for perpetrating evil stuff.
Yeah.
No, call people to action, call them to responsibility.
Yeah.
But let them know that they are accepted. We accept you, we love you, we don't like what you did, we don't like the addiction, we don't like your lack of commitment in your family, but we love you. We may not agree with the career of choice you took, but we love you and you're part of our family. There's nothing you will do that will make us reject you and refuse to have you. Let's also encourage a culture of respect. Even respecting the children, that we are not crossing boundaries. We respect their time, we respect, if this is a time for the kids to watch TV, please find your newspaper or go online and do something, because you have already given them, this is their time. But when you come and remind them, by the way, this is my TV, you go buy yours. Who's right? How do they feel like they belong and they are part of the family? So some of these things become important for us to actually think about it. Then how do we heal? It starts personally. Can I heal myself from the painful, traumatic experience from my family so that I don't unconsciously pass them on to my children? So it has to start with me. And then together as a couple, we also work through our conflicts so that our conflicts don't become the domestic violence, the separation, the infidelity that is, between
a couple.
And then let's extend it to the family. What's going on with a child? Are they having difficulty in school? We keep saying, if a child is having difficulty in school, that's not for the family to sit and talk about and say, okay, this one is having a problem now. Can the parents deal with that one child? Leave the rest of the children out of that conversation so that they can be able to respect that child. So if it's with one child, let's deal with that child. If it's with the whole family, then let's call everybody and deal with the whole family. But let's not, call a baraza to deal with one person's issue. That doesn't need the whole community, because then that is going to carry out information we did not intend for it to be carried out to that level. and then parent right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's an
Parent
individual,
right.
there is a couple responsibility,
Yeah.
there is a parental responsibility,
Yeah.
and there is a family responsibility.
Family responsibility.
Yeah.
And especially for children, little children,
Yeah.
who still
They are minors. They
They are
depend.
minors.
They depend on the parent.
on the parents.
And by the way,
buck stops
our
with the
government has now empowered our children. I think, is it grade 2 or grade 1 when our kids came and told us, these are the rights of children. Right to education, right to spirituality. We need to go to church.
Yeah.
Right to medical care.
Yeah.
Right to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Children now are beginning
Because
to...
we have realized that the adults are not doing their work.
Yeah.
So let us empower the children
Yeah.
to make demands
To
for
make
their
demands
rights.
and ask for their rights.
Yeah.
Wow. I still have a few questions I want to ask you.
Okay.
So we want to go to episode 3.
Okay.
We want to take a break and come back for the next episode.
Okay.
But thank you for sharing this with us. I hope that you are learning and getting empowered. This conversation is about breaking patterns of dysfunctions and trauma in families. This is Healing for the Family. We are glad you could join us.